Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the Google Pixel 6a and the Nothing Phone 1 and see basically how they both compare. Now, if you want to pick up either one of these phones, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, both these phones are a little bit different, but they both are somewhat relative budget phones. The Google Pixel 6a is about $449 right now. The Nothing Phone 1, I picked up this thing for like 600 bucks, but it may be cheaper in some other markets. If you're able to pick it up in America, go for it. If not, they're available all over the place. Now, starting off side by side, there definitely are some differences. The Google Pixel 6a is a little bit of a smaller phone. It has a 6.1-inch OLED display on the front. Now, this phone has a 1080p panel, and it's also a 90 Hz panel. So it's a little bit cheaper than the Nothing Phone for the most part, at least the one I got. This one was sent to me by Google, but if you want to pick it up, like I said, $449, I think, for the most part. And it was a pretty decent panel. Now, this one is more of a rugged phone, I would say, because it is a little bit more rectangular, so definitely keep that in mind with the hole punch display in the center. The Nothing Phone 1, on the other hand, you are actually getting a bigger 6.55-inch OLED display on this one. So it's a little bit bigger, but same resolution at 1080p. You still have that hole punch display on the top left corner, and I don't know if one display looks way better than the other one, but you do get a 120 Hz panel on this one. So that is a little bit of a difference. Is it a big difference? Maybe not, but it is slight, so it's probably a bigger advantage for something like the Nothing Phone 1. So definitely keep that in mind. In terms of thickness and thickness, this is also a somewhat interesting thing because both of them are relatively, I would say the Nothing Phone 1 is a little bit thicker, but because the Pixel 6a has a little bit, not at an extremely flat back, but it's kind of flat, it gives it a little bit of a different impression. But I will say I like the Nothing Phone 1. I love this complete flat side, but I still think the Pixel 6a is pretty flat enough, to be honest. On the back, a little bit of a different setup. So the Nothing Phone 1 has this really cool LED backlight back, which was really interesting. I think it was a really, really cool approach from the specific manufacturer. With Google, I also like this design. It's a little bit different than what they've done before the Pixel 6, but this one looks almost identically like the Pixel 6, which is cool. But this is not the Pixel 6, it's actually the Pixel 6a, and dual camera setups on both as well. However, the sensors on the Nothing Phone 1 look way bigger than the sensors on the actual Pixel 6a. So that is probably one thing to keep in mind as well. They both actually have IP certification, which is great. They both have wireless charging, which is great as well. So those are some really cool things. I'm glad they both at least. The Nothing Phone 1 has wireless charging and apparently reverse wireless charging, which is crazy. The Pixel 6a does not have wireless charging, so keep that in mind. That is a pretty big thing to keep in mind at the end of the day. So in terms of the outside, that kind of covers it up for the most part. In terms of the software longevity, I will probably say from all the rumors and reports, it's looking like the Pixel 6a will probably end up lasting around the same time as something like the Google Pixel, like the Nothing Phone 1. Again, I'm not 100% too sure. If I had to estimate, I would probably say they were going to be ending off for roughly around the same time. So probably one thing to keep in mind, but I think both these phones are going to be lasting for quite a bit of time, especially with the reports that the Nothing Phone 1 and that manufacturer, the Nothing company, is probably going to be lasting, supporting this phone for a while because they probably want to make money from this phone and they probably want to lead by example. So, and that covers it up there. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both these phones. The Pixel 6a has that Google Tensor chipset inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM on this model. The Nothing Phone 1, on the other hand, actually has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 778G Plus chipset inside of it with 8 gigs of RAM on the base model. It does go up to 12. This one does have 8 gigs of RAM inside. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Okay, there we go. Pixel 6a is here. Nothing Phone 1 is here. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can tell, except for the Nothing Phone 1. So I'm going to clear out here, and we are good to go. So let's get into it. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same thing. Hopping out of here. Let's go into messages 3, 2, 1. Roughly around the same thing too. Hopping out of here, let's go into camera 3, 2, 1. Okay, kind of the same thing. Let's take a photo. Night mode capability here. We do not have night mode here, so that's why it's taking quite a bit of time. So we'll just go and take this photo for now. And once this is done here, I'll go and load into this photo. So let's go and load into this photo. It did take a little bit longer time on something like the Nothing Phone 1, which is very interesting. Google Play Store, which is going to be like instantaneous 3, 2, 1. Okay, the Nothing Phone 1 was pretty fast here. I'm not really too sure why that ended up happening. Scrolling through here, I can definitely tell you that the 120 Hz display on the Nothing Phone 1 is better than the 60 Hz display on the Pixel 6a, and this is definitely where you're going to be noticing these types of differences. I hope I didn't say the Pixel 6a had 90 Hz because it does not. It has 60 Hz here, 120 Hz here on the Nothing Phone 1, and it's a pretty big difference. Hopping out of here, let's go and get into some of these third-party applications that I have right here. Snapchat, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think the Pixel 6a is slightly faster. Let's go and get into Instagram, 3, 2, 1. Nothing Phone 1, a little bit faster there. Facebook, 3, 2, 1. About the same thing. I don't really think there was that big of a difference there. Let's go and do Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. So it actually looks like the Pixel 6a was the slight faster one here for the most part, just slightly faster though. And the Nothing Phone 1 was a little bit slower. Not a crazy big deal, but again, one of those things to keep in mind. Hopping out of this specific one, let's go and get into the original Temple Run, 3, 2, 1. And I am surprised. I thought the Nothing Phone 1 was going to be like an extreme amount slower. It's not really quite the case. I mean, the Nothing Phone 1 is keeping up quite well with the Google Tensor chipset, which is like a really good chipset for now. At least that's what everybody says. Dropbox 3, 2, 1. Nothing Phone 1 was faster. Quizlet 3, 2, 1. Nothing Phone 1 again is faster. Let's go and do Stack 3, 2, and I don't have it. And honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest, I kind of do think that both these phones did a very, very good job. I don't know if one was exponentially faster though. I kind of think that I honestly don't know which one was faster. If I had to put a number on it, I think maybe the Pixel 6a was the more times faster one, but the Nothing Phone 1 has that 120 hertz, which is really, really nice. It's a really nice touch. So that is one advantage here. But I think the 6a was probably the faster one, but both are really fast phones. So that kind of covers it up there. In terms of the camera setup, this is honestly another very interesting thing. Like I said before, dual camera setups on both these phones, but they are slightly different. On the Nothing Phone 1, we have a 50 megapixel wide-angle lens, and then a 50 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, where the Pixel 6a has a 12.2 megapixel wide-angle lens, then a 12 megapixel ultra-wide sensor. Now both can do 4K on the back, but we can do 4K at 60 on the back of the Pixel 6a, but we can only do 4K at 30 on the back of the Nothing Phone, which is very, very weird. They both can do 1080p at 30 on the front, but that is very weird that the Nothing Phone 1 apparently can't do 4K at 60, which is crazy. Now with the Pixel 6a, I will tell you, for this camera, it really wasn't that bad of a camera. I think Google did a pretty decent job at it. Definitely wasn't perfect, but seeing the evolution happen from like one Google phone, like the Pixel 4a to the 5a to the 6a, this was a really good upgrade, at least coming from the 4a, and I'm actually really happy with this specific device. This phone has a pretty good camera. Like I said, it's definitely not perfect, missing an ultra-wide sensor, missing 4K at 60 on the front, no 8K capability like we have on most Samsung phones now, but it's still a very good phone overall, and I will tell you, this is a very solid camera. The only sad thing about it is that there's not a lot of features built into the camera, as you guys can tell. But I think other than that, this is a pretty good lens, and I'm a fan of it for sure. On the Nothing Phone 1, this is a pretty good camera, I will say. I will say one thing. I like the back of this phone. I think it looks great. Is the camera great? I mean, I'm kind of unsure why they don't have 4K at 60 on the back of this camera. I'm going to go ahead and double check. So we click on video right here. You can see up top we have 1080p at 60. If we go to 4K, you can see we can only do 4K at 30. There is no 4K at 60, which is very, very weird. I don't know why they do that. It's a very, very strange thing. I just don't know. But you do have a lot more options built in, I feel like, to this specific camera. And I hate how it just like improves, like brightens the screen like crazy. But there's a few different options you have built in here, but it's still nothing compared to Samsung. It's pretty much the same thing as Google. So I will tell you, with this type of camera, it's a pretty good camera, but I'll probably tell you the Pixel 6a isn't too far off either. And to be honest, I think this is a very interesting thing, because when it comes down to both these phones, they both are very good. I feel like the Nothing Phone 1 gives me the impression it's a little bit more of a flagship. I haven't really used this phone a whole lot. I've used the Pixel 6a a little bit, and I know exactly how I feel about this phone, but this one I'm still learning. But when I compared it to the Pixel 6a, if they were the same price, I would probably tell you to pick up this one over that one. But considering for me it was a lot harder to buy and had to spend a lot more money on this, I spent about almost $600. I spent over $600 on this phone, almost $200 more than this thing. I don't think it's $200 more of a phone here. I feel like you're getting a better display for sure on this phone. I feel like the novelty on the back is really nice. I like this LED backlight thing, whatever it is. And I feel like this phone kind of still feels more like a flagship. I like this extreme flat side, and it is still a very fast phone. But I think the Pixel 6a, honestly, is probably the better phone. Like, I feel like this is the better one I would probably have. It feels a little bit more comfortable in my hand. It doesn't seem as big of a phone as the Nothing Phone 1. I think even though the display isn't really the best thing, I feel like it's still a really good feeling phone for the most part. And I still think with it having the camera that it has, the camera sensors on this thing I think are better. The only thing is this phone is missing wireless and reverse wireless charging, which is very sad. But you still have the USB Type-C port on this thing. I don't know why I always mention the USB Type-C port. You still have a really good camera on this thing. You have very good build quality. I would probably recommend buying a Pixel 6a over the Nothing Phone 1 just because this thing is more available. But if you don't have the availability of buying a Pixel 6a, I'd recommend just going for the Nothing Phone 1 in my opinion. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.